So prior to my senior year in high school, I was not a good student. I struggled to find my grounding due to past traumas, including my mother passing at 5, which for a young child is very destabilizing. And like, what is grief as a 5-year-old, right? You don't actually really get to go through that process. And so I think I went through that process as a teenager, trying to find a sense of belonging and community outside of school. And I did, among the other misfits. And we would skip school a lot, and do misfit things, but I really always felt intellectually curious. I've always been smart. I've always been a smart student, but I wasn't in an environment that was conducive for learning. It wasn't until I was about 17 and a half where I thought to myself, or no, sorry, I was 16. I thought to myself, my life choices are not aligning with the future that I see for myself. And I knew I needed a fresh start. It just so happened that my aunt, who she took me in when my mom passed, was moving to the suburbs, and I was like, okay, there's no way I'm gonna make it in Macedonia. So I was like, oh, I get to have a new start. Can I stay in the city with Granny in East Cleveland and go to Shaw High School? And so I ended up transferring to Shaw High School. I joined a marching band program, which was really transformative for me. It gave me structure and discipline, and it was fun, and we got to travel all over the country. But the good thing is I had to maintain good grades to stay in the marching band. And so I did that. I pretty much changed my life. And it was because of the people who nurtured me in that environment. It was because I had mentors who really saw what I was capable of. I had a teacher tell me I was college material, and the rest was history. That was all you had to tell me, and I kind of took off. So I did really well my senior year. One day during the spring semester, I was sitting in a science class. It was your run-of-the-mill high school science class. We were doing independent work. The teacher was giving instruction. You could hear the hum of students talking in the background, and all of a sudden I hear over the PA system, Ashley Wright, will you please come to the main office? And I hadn't been called to the office in quite a while, so I was really anxious about what could happen, and anything could happen. It could have been anything, but in my mind, my association with the office was always trouble, because I was always in trouble when I was in the office. And so I get up and I start walking to the main office, and I feel a sense of something is gonna happen. I didn't know what that was. And I felt really anxious. I could hear my heart beating. I felt like it was the fastest, slowest walk. My feet were heavy. I was shallowly breathing. And I get to the office, and my principal, she sits me down and she says, something came for you, and I'm gonna give this to you. Do you know who this is? She hands me a letter that is addressed to me with the high school's address on there, and in the return section, it was the name Lawrence Jones with the corrections facility address on there. And so in my mind, I'm like, I don't know who this could be. The name Lawrence Jones did kind of ring a bell, but I was like, yeah, this should be interesting. In my mind, that's what I'm thinking. And she's like, well, are you gonna open it? So I proceed to open the letter, I start reading it, and within the first paragraph, it says, if you're reading this, Ashley, I found you. This is your father. And immediately my life changed after reading those words. I was a bit in shock. I felt a bit like this is a really big thing to happen for me all in 1 year. But also when I said this to my principal, she was also like, wow. It turned out that he had written all of the Cleveland public schools, including the East Cleveland School and Shaw High School, and that's how he found me from prison. The letter read in dull pencil on really fresh paper. He must have been writing a lot. It read with a sense of urgency. He really wanted me to meet my family. He put in this letter my grandmother's phone number, which is his mom. And within that year, I met my grandmother. I found out I had a sister, and I found out I had 2 brothers. And within the year, I met all of them. And also within that year, I graduated and I went on to college. The following year in 2008 was when I met my father. He had been released from prison. We talked 2 or 3 times in between that letter and me finally meeting him. And all conversations, pretty long conversations, if you would imagine. And we set it up for me to meet him on Thanksgiving when I came home from college. I was 19, and I didn't know what to think of him when I was like, what does he look like? You know, what type of guy is he gonna be? I had all these preconceived notions about how he would be as someone who'd been in and out of prison my entire life. And I was a little nervous, I'm not gonna lie. So when he came to my grandmother's apartment, my mom's mom, it was me and my family there, my aunt, her daughters, me, and he opened the door, and I remember as soon as I saw him, it was like looking at myself. He was so happy to see me, big smile. He gave me the biggest, longest hug. And I remember him just having the most warm presence, which was not what I expected. So he totally dispelled any preconceived notions that I had about him. Throughout that day, I was watching him, and I noticed that we had the same mannerisms, same personality, same sense of humor, a very jovial person, and it was really like I had met myself. I had come home to myself. And it was like that thing that you didn't know you needed. When you meet the other half of your family, when you don't know, you don't know. But when you meet them, you're like, this is the thing that I didn't know I needed. So meeting him and spending that time with him was wonderful. Over the course of the next couple of years after meeting him, I would see him maybe twice. And then I remember we talked on the phone for a short period of time. One summer, I was in Kentucky with some friends, and I remember on this particular day, I just felt really down. I didn't feel well, and it wasn't a physical sickness. It was more like a general just malaise. Like I didn't know what was wrong that day. So I asked my friend, could I go to her apartment or go to her grandmother's house, because we were in Kentucky at her grandmother's house, and just lay down. So I laid down, and when I woke up from my nap, I woke up with a sense of panic. I called everyone in my phone that I was close to ask if they were okay. I didn't understand where the sense of panic was coming from, but I felt that something had gone wrong. And then about an hour later, I get a phone call from my aunt, his sister, my Aunt Selena, that my father had passed away from a massive heart attack in prison. And that was one of the most uncanny days of my life. I, to this day, believe that I felt my father die. He, according to the doctor, he didn't feel any pain. It was sudden, it was quick. But I feel like I felt that. Feel like I felt him pass, which is a testament to our connection to each other because he's my father. And so went to the funeral. Days after the funeral, my grandmother and I sat for the whole day, and she was just rummaging through his letters that he sent to her throughout the year. He disclosed to her that he was ready. He was tired, and that he also didn't want her to internalize the choices that he made. She talked to me about his childhood, how he was really smart, he was curious, he was a happy kid, and it turned out that he went through a series of traumatic events that prompted him to leave home at around 16. I feel like rebel isn't necessarily the right term to use, but he wanted to escape. And I think, like me, he was trying to find a sense of belonging, a sense of respite in the midst of all of the trauma that he experienced. And he let her know that in these letters. Sitting with my grandmother that day and learning about my father, who he was prior to him leaving home, who he was even after leaving home, made me feel like, wow, the similarities in us. His life was, in my life, were in a way parallel to each other. So whatever his mission was or purpose was in the earth, he did that. His prison mates went to chapel the week that he passed. Apparently he was witnessing to his inmates because he wanted to be a preacher at one point. He still became a preacher of sorts in prison. But I think what his life taught me or showed me was, one, our lives were very similar in our early stages of being on the earth. And his life became an example of what it looks like when you don't necessarily have the people to catch you before you kind of hit the ground. And the parallel in our lives was the split happened for me because I had a really good support system. But I also think what his life did for me was inspire me, encourage me to move forward. I am his legacy. In a lot of ways, I am just like him, and he lives on through me. But his life represents for me the multitude of people who have stories that go unheard. When people listen to your story, it makes all the difference. His story taught me about empathy, and it informed the type of educator I would become. It informs the type of thought leader that I am now. I always lead with empathy. I always lead with human-centeredness because of my father's story. And I am here because of him. I am half of him, and I'm going to continue to see forward his legacy with me.